You're listening to the Esoterics Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Joe.
And this is Fioraliz. Welcome back to the Esoterics Podcast.
Hi Fee, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you today?
I'm good. It's a good day today. It's beautiful and it's sunshiny and I've got lots of things to do today, so it's a good day.
Cool. I spent the weekend shopping for stuff on Facebook Marketplace.
For stuff for the house?
Yeah, I got a patio set finally for outdoor.
Yay!
Yeah. But I just feel like some people are such bad buyers, and there's also really bad sellers too, but especially the buying people that are constantly like sending messages and then they don't respond at all. And So when you're serious about buying something, you have to be like super direct or like, go the extra mile now to be like, I want it. I'm going to be there. Like, I'm not just a flake who's asking, if it's still available and then never responding again.
And you can use your patio set year round, correct?
For the most part, yeah. Because we don't really have like a rainy season that puts us out for like weeks at a time. It just like rains here and there. So
Yeah. No. I have to get some tarps to cover mine.
I have to do that too.
With tarps and stuff.
Yeah, I want to do that too. Just it'll help keep them longer and do all that. Oh, but you get a little snow sometimes too.
Yeah, the snow is. But just it's very rarely. But it's the constant rain. It causes moss to grow on things.
Oh,
and so which I love the moss. It's so funny because here in Oregon, it's the opposite of what it was in Michigan. In Michigan, in the winter, the grass would get brown. And then in the spring it would turn green. Well, here in the summer, the grass gets dry and brown and, it could ignite at any minute. But in the winter, it's the most beautiful, lush, most gorgeous color. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's what I love about that area too. It's just all the rain helps. Oh, I also watched your movie. I watched Prey.
Did you like it?
I did like it. Acting wise, the storyline was good. The fighting and all that was good. But it hits one pet peeve for me. But I also understand it because how many people speak Comanche and are actors? I'm sure a lot of people speak Comanche, but not a lot of them are actors. Okay, right. My pet peeve is when a movie is set and it's a group of people that are supposed to speak a certain language and they don't speak it. And instead they speak English with an American accent the entire time. That's my pet peeve.
Yeah, I can see. There is a version of that movie that is completely in Comanche. Okay. 100% all Comanche. But I don't know if the actors are truly Comanche indigenous. So
you can only get so far. But that's cool. No, if I would be interested in watching it. So, but no, if you know what, then I might watch it in that version and I probably would like it even more. But that's cool that they made it so that actually passes my test overall.
Yeah. Yay.
That's
good.
Very cool.
Like I said, it was my favorite of the Prey. Now people have responded to that and been like, no, it's not my favorite, favorite.
Predator?
It's my favorite of the Predator series. Yeah. And people, said, no, that's not my favorite, which is fine. But, it's mine.
Yeah.
So
that to me has happened for a few movies, like that movie with Tom Cruise where he's the German soldier, person trying to basically kill Hitler, put a hit on Hitler.
Oh yeah, what's the name of that? It's not the one with Brad Pitt.
No.
Tarantino.
So that movie, Inglourious Bastards.
That's one of my favorite movies.
Yes, same. Me too. Because it does the opposite of what I hate. Like everyone who's supposed to be speaking a certain language, speaks it, and so it's badass. Yeah, I can't remember the name of that movie, but every time I see it come on, it bugs me. And I know they try to do it like in the beginning. He's speaking German, and then it switch Valkyrie. That's what it's called. And
Valkyrie,
then it switches over into English, and I'm just supposed to like be on board the whole time. I'm like, no, this is stupid. This is a bunch of... You're supposed
I haven't
to be
watched
speaking
Valkyrie,
German.
so
okay. What other
watched
movie does it? Swing Kids. I remember we watched that in German class, and that's the same thing. It's like a bunch of, but I think actually that one's different. I think that's actually like it's American kids that are in Germany. That one's okay.
Oh,
I don't know, but there's a bunch of movies. If you once you notice it, it bothers you, or it bothers me. And then obviously they used to do it a shit ton in like, what is it, the 50s and the 40s and stuff, with all those movies that were set in like Roman era, but they're all speaking British English. Like it's yeah.
What did they just recently have? They just recently had a movie I saw. I know what you're talking about with Prey. Like they talk Comanche, but then when they talk English, they sound like American.
Yeah, just like teenagers. Yeah.
Yes. I see what you're saying. Okay, because I'm like, wait a minute. I did notice that actually. Now that you're mentioning it, and now that I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. I know what you're talking about too.
Yeah.
Where the girl was like, I want to go and fight, and I want to be a fighter, and he's like, you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but overall, it was good. So
it was so good. It was so good. It was just, it had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. One of my favorite shows last night had their series finale. It's Animal Kingdom, and I've been watching that sucker all 5 seasons, and oh my god, it was so good. I don't think it got the attention that it deserved, and I think this last season it really it sort of died off a little bit, but literally the series finale was the worst fucking series finale of any. It was
even worse. Did you watch Game of Thrones? Because I heard that one infuriated
I didn't hate
people.
Game of Thrones. Everybody was so mad about it. I'm like, they wrapped everything up. I mean, I was pissed off that Jon Snow couldn't stay with his family, but other than that, it's like I was like, I mean, fine by me. The dude killed the queen, and there needed to be some retribution.
Spoilers.
Or, you know what I mean?
Spoiler.
Yeah.
I still have not seen it. I have not.
Oopsie.
But I don't even know if I want to, because some people are like, it ends terribly. I'm like, well, I don't
end terribly. It doesn't. End terribly.
Okay.
I don't think it does.
Maybe I'll consider it.
And here's the thing: I was not a Game of Thrones fans either, and everybody was like, I was like, I was always sharing those memes. Marked safe from watching Game of Thrones, right? But finally I gave in, and oh my god, I binged that sucker, and then I couldn't wait for the final season to come out. So, but I was able to binge 6 seasons, and it was so good. It was really good. So, if you like that type of thing, if you like that era, if you like all that, it's very, very, very sexual. So if you're watching it and some of the littles come in, you might be like, get out.
Don't. Yeah.
Embarrassing, right? But other than that, it was good.
It was HBO, right? Is that on HBO?
Yeah.
That's why. I feel like anytime it's an HBO show, it's always like tons of sex in it. I don't know. Because they can.
Yeah. It's like, because the new series now, House of Dragon, I caught the first episode. It was really good. And I didn't catch the second episode last night because I was watching Animal Kingdom. But now that Animal Kingdom is done, then I'll start watching. I'm so sad it was done, though. Well.
Sometimes when it's a really good show and it comes to an end, it's like reading a really good book, and it's like having to say goodbye to a friend, right? It's like, oh, no, it's over.
Yes.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I felt that way, because I feel like a lot of times shows slowly fade out in a way of like, oh, well, it's over now, but do I feel bad about it? Not really. Like Mad Men.
I didn't care about them either.
Mad Men, like, it started off really well, and like the first 2 seasons I think were really solid, and then it just kind of I don't know, deteriorated and just went into this weird spot, and then it got into the 60s, and I was like, I don't care for it anymore. And it wasn't sad like that. I know Breaking Bad was like, but also though the way that it was all tied together, that was an amazing show.
Yeah. I've never seen Breaking Bad, and it's one of those things that's on my list because I understand that everybody's like, it's literally one of the best.
It is. It is.
Sons of Anarchy.
Mm.
Sons of Anarchy was one of those shows where when it was done, I'm like, all right, can we just wrap this shit up, please, already? Because it was starting to get annoying. You know what I mean? But it was a good show. I loved Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, Breaking Bad didn't do that. Breaking Bad does not do that. There's a little bit of a slow start kind of in the beginning, I would say the first season, but it's necessary for the story. And then once it takes off, it takes off.
Does it really?
And you're just like,
nonstop?
oh yeah. And then you're just caught in it and then you just can't let go.
No shit.
And it's a weird phenomenon to like be cheering, the anti-hero thing, to like be cheering for a bad guy kind of thing. It's a weird place to be, but it was good.
But it's good. I love cheering for the bad guy though, especially if they're like a good bad guy.
Yeah.
So basically, if I watch it, I'll be able to stream the entire series. And I'm a binger. I need instant gratification. So I would spend like days probably watching this thing. So it's worth it.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Right,
do it.
It'll be my next one. The other one that's really good is The Boys on Amazon. It was in my list for the longest time, and then I finally caught it, and wow, that's such a good show. So yeah,
I'll have
really
to check that out.
Yeah. So I want to talk about my astrology reading last night.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I had I'm starting this mentorship in September, and have I officially announced that yet?
I don't think so. No. Mm-mm.
Oh, I guess this is the official announcement. So I'm starting an astrology mentorship in September, and it's a 14-month membership. And it's all online, but there's also in-person study groups. But Dreamy, the owner of Psychic Sister, is sort of like one of the teacher assistants. And so I'm lucky enough to obviously have her right there. So I asked her if she would give me an astrology reading, similar to, like what the type of astrology that I'm going to be learning.
Yeah.
And plus I've also always said that whenever anybody has given me one, I've never understood it because they use words that I don't understand and phrases. And I'm just like, I don't know what that means. You know what I mean? So, but this one, literally, this was one of the best readings I've ever received. And she explained everything in a really cool way. It was just easy to understand. Anyway, so here's the cool part about it. So I'm looking at my chart and I can't use any of the terms and I won't be able to tell you guys what I'm looking at because I don't have the knowledge to be able to describe that. But there is one part of my chart that shows all of these planets. It was like Neptune, Pluto, Jupiter, and Chiron. Okay. All of these planets in my 12th house.
Oh, okay.
And opposite of that was, and that was just above my ascendant. Opposite of that with my descendant.
When you have all those planets in one house, that means it's a stellium.
Yes, that's what she said. It was a stellium. Anyway, it indicated that in a past life, I was a nun. Now, how she read that from there is beyond me. I don't know. That's what a badass she is.
That's crazy.
But it indicates that in a past life, I was a nun. I was like, had this huge connection to God. And she's like, it's bigger than life, bigger than life. So she never really said God, a nun. What she said was there was some sort of connection to God that was bigger than life. And I was like, oh my God, well, that explains it. So what it does is she was tapping into this past life that I had where I was a nun and I was killed by the Mother Superior at the request of the cardinal because this girl, she was a young nun who was just, I mean, this nun loved God more than life itself. She was the most devout, purely spiritual, beautiful soul I have ever channeled. And because of that scared the church because people shouldn't be looking to her for, any sort of guidance, or they should be looking to God, right? So Mother Superior was killed. So that showed up in my freaking astrology chart. And I thought that was so cool. Yeah. So.
Do you remember when you and I sat down for, I think it was when we were doing just the practice of opening the Akashic records. And that was one of the lives that I opened. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That life comes up a lot. I don't know why. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't think I'm harboring anything, but I don't know. I mean, oh, well, what she said was because it was directly opposite of Chiron, I think is what she said. That indicated that this is the life to heal that. And so then I was like, oh, well, that makes sense because very early on in my young, like I started out, like I had a really bad experience with the church. My mom was anti organized religion. Then I had a bad experience and I legitimately loathe the Catholic Church. I've said it before. It's past life based. It's not this life based, but I loathe everything about them. And I was like, why the hell? Like, why do I hate the Catholic Church? Poor Catholic Church. Like, and that explains it. But yeah, very, very, very cool. That this is the life where I heal that. So, well, so far it's not worked.
I mean, I'm not going to church anytime soon either.
Okay, so what are we talking about today? I'm excited to find out.
So today we are talking about a curandera from Mexico. Her name was Pachita.
Pachita?
Pachita, yes. Her actual birth name was Barbara Guerrero. She was born in the year 1900 in a city called Parral in the state of Chihuahua in Mexico. If you've never heard of her, she is a woman who was famous for doing what was called psychic surgeries. And this whole story I've been researching now for like probably about a month. And it's just taken me down rabbit hole past rabbit hole. And there's so much stuff here to understand where I was like, I'm going to start with her. And then we're going to ease into the real esoteric stuff as we progress.
Nice. Okay, I love it. I'm excited.
All right, so I'll tell you a little bit about her and her early life. So she, like I said, she was born in 1900. When she was a child, she was actually abandoned by her parents. And I couldn't really get a clear answer as to why exactly, other than the fact they said that they were unmarried and they couldn't care for her under normal social standards of the time, which I'm like, I'm guessing she was illegitimate. Maybe the father was already married or something to someone else, and I don't know. So she was abandoned as an infant, and she was actually raised by a man named Charles, and Charles was of African descent. So he came from someone from the Caribbean, and I don't know anything about him or how he got to Mexico or anything, but he taught her he raised her up until age 15. He taught her about African magic, healing practices, herbal medicines, astral travel, how to do oracle readings. So he left a big impression on her as far as the way, obviously, he raised her too. When she was 15, he returned back to his home country and she was left alone.
Why didn't he take her? What?
I know. Maybe he couldn't. I don't know. And also, we don't know how old he was because they just said that he went back to his country to die.
Oh.
It's like, well, yeah.
Right.
So it could have been he was sick.
All right.
So, and she was 15. She did a lot of things, but one of the things that she was said to have done is she fought in the Mexican Revolution.
Badass.
And the Mexican Revolution went from 1910 to 1920. So when she was 15, would have been 1915. So that pretty much dives with the timeline. That was Pancho Villa who led the Mexican Revolution. And there were also rumors that they were romantically involved with each other, which I was like,
right?
It's a little spicy.
Scandal.
Yeah, but she was only a teenager.
Right?
So.
Creepy fucker Pancho Villa.
I mean, but also it's the times though too,
then,
right? Like how many of our like grandmas were that
Right.
age when they got married? So
Right, yeah.
Different times. So as a little girl, she began to hear voices, and by the age of 10, she was already demonstrating the ability to heal people.
Nice.
Her first encounter where she actually first healed something or someone was when she went to a circus. And there was a sick baby elephant that was on the verge of dying. And she went over, they don't say exactly how, but she went over and healed him.
Yeah.
And that's when she knew what she was able to do. And that's what solidified her own belief in herself and her abilities And that's how she kept going. She would slip, as a little girl, she would slip into trances and claim that her body was being taken over by an entity that she called El Hermanito, which means the little brother. And so this is where I was telling you last week, what you were talking about was perfectly feeding into this
With
story.
channeling.
Because this is essentially what she was doing. She would later identify the little brother as Cuauhtemoc, and Cuauhtemoc was actually the last emperor of the Aztecs. He was the nephew of Moctezuma.
Oh, cool. So
what was different though about her like channeling versus, because there was she had an assistant, one of her sons. It was one of her sons who was actually like able to help her with the surgeries when she was doing them. And he would not completely, his consciousness would not completely leave his body when they allowed the little brother to come and take over. And so he stated that because he allowed part of his consciousness to still stay intact, that he didn't have as much protection as Pachita did, because Pachita would essentially like leave. Like she was in another place and she would completely allow the little brother to come in and completely take over her body.
Okay, but why does that indicate not as much protect? So what was like either what half was not protected?
Physically. So
his physical body?
Said, so his physical body didn't have as much protection. So he said that as a result that Pachita would had actually had to do surgery on him several times, on several different occasions because of ailments that he would come down with. And the thing too is that in Mexican culture and in Mexican shamanism, there's a belief that there are not good, I don't know that that's not the proper word, is like good ailments versus bad ailments. Sure. But basically like that a good ailment is something that can be treated with traditional medicines, like a headache, let's say, for example. And then there's bad ailments, which are things like a tumor or something like that. And that some of those are caused actually by somebody else putting their energy into you. And so it's like it's put onto you by an outside source. Yeah. So what she was actually treating were these bad ailments. So her procedures would go, she had like this whole special routine to prepare herself. So she would connect with the spirit of Cuauhtemoc through a prayer. And so she would sit in front of an altar that she had in a consultation room. And this altar had a statue of Cuauhtemoc and like offerings to him. And she would close her eyes, breathe softly until she heard a soft buzzing in her ears. Ooh. And according to her, she said that the buzzing indicated that it was a shift in her state of consciousness was about to occur. Yeah. And then she said that she would feel as if she was about to fall into a big hole into another form of consciousness or another dimension of consciousness.
Yes, that tracks. That's what it feels like when the Akashic Records open. It's like I just got hit with a big old pillow of ooey gooey buttery marshmallows. I don't know how to explain it other than that.
Yeah. So she said that she would then let herself go and perform whatever healing was necessary. And so that was essentially, she wasn't there anymore. And at that point it was Cuauhtemoc who was there, and he would be the one controlling her body and doing whatever needed to be done to do the healing, to come in and intake the patients, talk to them, and then make the recommendations that were necessary. Wow. But he was essentially speaking through her because they said that even her voice would change. It would get deeper and more masculine. So that's how they knew who they were talking to. Yeah. This was also one of the things that made the research kind of difficult for this, because most of the books on this are written in Spanish. And then when they get translated into English, the translation fails because they talk about her and they talk about him as the same person. And so that it just doesn't track. Like it doesn't make any sense. So that was part of the things that made it difficult, because it's like, at what point do you stop saying her or she and you start talking about, him or, or the brother or whatever, when they're essentially kind of the same person because they're coming out of the same body. It's just weird. It's the weird thing.
Well, that's the original source of they them then, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Like y'all should have thought about they them.
Right. So one of the things that she would do when she was diagnosing people, because she would do consultations first. She wouldn't just go straight into surgery for most people. Most people didn't even require surgery. So she would first diagnose the patients by sitting down with them, and then she would hold them by the hands, and then she would close her eyes, and then she would say that she was physically able to see everything that was ailing them. She would see what was wrong with them.
Badass.
Like a x-ray.
Right.
So then after this, then she would either prescribe herbal recipes or changes in their lifestyle, or in some cases, surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, the surgeries were like everything from like eye surgeries, hearts, kidneys, the brain surgery, like straight up, she did a cerebral cortex replacement.
Nice.
Fingers, spines, and other organs. And all of her surgeries were done basically with a kitchen knife.
Oh my.
That was like,
wait a minute.
Wrapped in
How
duct
is
tape.
it a psychic surgery if there's a knife involved?
Oh no, she was actually opening up the skin. So I don't know why they're called I think psychic assisted surgeries is really the true.
I'm sorry.
The true.
You're not getting near me with that butter knife, bitch. You're not getting near my brain with that butter knife. I don't know.
Dude, and without any anesthesia.
So
like nothing.
Did the people just endure the pain, or?
So I have a firsthand story to tell you about somebody who had one of her surgeries done to her. So I'll tell you just a little bit more about the process. So sometimes they would do organ transplants.
What?
And then she would literally either just create the new organ, like out of fucking thin air.
Manifestation, right? It's manifestation. I mean, that's
extreme.
Yeah.
And then there were some people though that they were required to like bring the new organ. Like you got to bring a kidney. And I don't know where, like, did it go to the morgue? I don't know.
Oh my God. Can you imagine the crime that could potentially create? Sorry, random lady. It sucks to be you, but I need your freaking kidney. Give it here.
I hope you had an organ donor who on your. I don't know if they have that in Mexico, but you know. So she would do the surgery, but then once the surgery was done, she would do what was called saturating, and that was essentially just placing alcohol-soaked bandages over, you know, the area that had been cut open, and then put the hands over it. Yeah. And that would close the incision.
No.
And that's it. There's no stitch. You would not stitch people up.
No.
And leave no scars.
No. I'm not.
And
this is blowing my fucking mind, right? Like, what?
Dude, yeah. And then in a matter of hours, the patients could return to their homes. And then aftercare instructions varied from herbal infusions to like just 3 days of absolute rest. It wasn't like rocket science.
And this was in like the early 1900s?
This was in the 60s.
Why the fuck 60s was this?
And 70s.
What? Why was she not like national news, like a rock star, like Elvis? What,
dude? So she kind of was.
Really?
Like she kind of was as far as Mexico goes.
Okay, all right.
So there is a guy. He was a Charles Mingus. He was a jazz artist, like a jazz player. He went to go see her and try to get him to cure her. She was actually only able to keep him alive for like maybe a year longer because he'd already been told that he was going to die. So, but people did know about her, but it was also really underground because when she first, you know, like realized her powers and like her abilities, what she was able to do, she had to keep it a secret because it was, think of the times, it would have been like the 1920s maybe. Yeah. And even at this time in the 60s and the 70s, at one point she was under protection because people just saw it as like, oh, that's black magic.
Oh, yeah, witchcraft, yeah. Yeah.
It's witchcraft, it's brujeria, like, it's devil, that's devil work or whatever. And then they absolutely just would discount everything that she was, any good she was doing. And then she would be persecuted.
The ignorance that...
So she couldn't be like super famous about it because essentially people wouldn't let her. So, I mean, that's, a social problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so patients were seen in the order of children first, then women, and then lastly men.
Okay. Well, it should be.
As it should. So the actual process of what she would do, though, how she would talk to people, or I should say how they would talk to people, is that she's like walking down a road with these people, and she would guide each person down through this path and letting them truly believe and find that faith that they could have absolute health and that they could be completely cured. And what all people who came to see her said about her was that she helped to return them to their faith, to re-encounter their true selves or their higher selves or to God, or just she was restoring faith.
Yeah.
Is what these people would say that she was doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So eventually she would establish herself in a home, and it was called Casa de las Brujas, which is home of the witches.
I love that.
And so it was like a fuck all,
right.
like, we're here.
Well,
and this was on a tree line. Yeah. She was on a tree-lined street in Plaza de Rio de Janeiro Street in Mexico. And so that's where she lived, and she had a small consultation office. People would come to see her from all over the world. Although it obviously was traveling kind of an underground channel, like people did know who she was. All her surgeries were done under dim lights, preferably under candlelight, and she claimed that bright lights actually harmed organs. And then witnesses claimed that she could conjure new organs out of thin air or with her tool. And then no one suffered from infections or bad side effects from the lack of use of antiseptics or even anesthesia.
I mean, that was my first thing, right? Like, where's the antiseptic? What about infection? What about bacteria? But again, keep your butter knife. I want some scalpel and some anesthesia and some, you know what I mean? But if it works.
Yeah. She was the only one in Mexico performing these types of surgeries. So it did draw a lot of attention to herself. So there was actually this investigator that came, and her name was Dr. Andrija Puharich, and she was an American paranormal investigator. So she, her claim to fame was bringing psychic Uri Geller from Israel to the U.S. And thus making Geller a worldwide sensation. So that's the guy who bent the silver spoons, right? So Dr. Puharich visited Pachita in January of 1978 with a small group of investigators to study her methods in depth. By the time of this visit, Pachita was close to 80 years old, and she was still doing 8 to 10 consultations or healings per day.
Damn. I can't even do 5 readings a day.
Okay, so here is Dr. Puharich's testimony of, it's his experiences, my bad.
Okay.
Anyway, so he said, I decided to undergo instant surgery myself before allowing any of my own patients to be operated on by Pachita. For 2 years, I had been suffering the gradual onset of spongy bone growth in both ears, causing progressive loss of hearing, and the operation was to correct this. I was not hypnotized before the operation, nor was any medication given. I laid down on the table with some cotton pads, and they were placed around the ear to absorb bleeding. 3 witnesses were present, one of whom took photographs. Holding the knife in her right hand, Pachita quickly inserted 3 inches of the knife blade into the right ear canal. The forefinger of her left hand guided the blade in. The pain was acute, yet I did not scream or tried to avoid the knife, even though it felt as if the tip of the blade had penetrated the eardrum. After holding the knife in the ear canal for about 40 seconds, Pachita withdrew it, and the pain ceased immediately. The left ear was operated on in a similar way, and this time the pain was even greater, close to my breaking point. As soon as the knife was withdrawn, however, the pain stopped. The surgery had taken 3 minutes. No sterile procedure was used, and Pachita's bare hands were covered with blood from previous operations. So after the operation, there was only minimal bleeding, but a new complication appeared. My head was ringing with loud noises, so loud I could not hear what people were saying to me. I was given a tincture and told to put 1 drop in each ear daily. The noises decreased gradually, and by the 8th day after the operation, it had ceased altogether. In fact, my hearing was now so acute that I suffered painfully from hyperacusis, which is the abnormally increased power of hearing. This condition lasted for about 2 weeks. 1 month after the operation, my hearing was completely back to normal. And after this experience, I felt completely confident in Pachita's treatment and able to recommend her instant surgeries to patients.
And you know, the medical board is like, oh, this bitch. We can't have this.
This is many violations.
Oh my God. I mean, just the thought of, first off, acute pain, no. But then even more intense, no. But I mean, you know, shit, breaking point pain, that's no joke.
Yeah, but there are a lot of stories of different people who had surgeries done by her. So, but they're all pretty much told by this scientist. Okay, so out of all the people that came to visit her, one of the most important people that would ever come into her path was Jacobo Greenberg Zilberbaum. And he was known as the Einstein of consciousness. Oh. He was actually a Mexican neuroscientist. Oh. And he taught at it's UNAM. It's one of the universities in Mexico. And so he was a published scientist, professor, all sorts of things. And he actually had a ton of interest in starting in a dedicated school, dedicated college for the study of consciousness. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in this endeavor of him trying to get this started, he actually ended up making friends with the president at the time. The president was Jose Lopez Portillo. It was like the late 70s, early 80s. His sister, Margarita Lopez Portillo, she introduced Greenberg to Pachita. They actually were housing Pachita at the fucking presidential palace. Wow. It was called Los Pinos. Yeah. So imagine like, you know, somebody being so famous or whatever, and they're like literally like living at like the Mexican White House, like
living there.
It's nuts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right. It's like if P. Diddy was living with Trump.
I would say like Deepak, or like Deepak was living with Biden or something. Let's make it a little cooler.
I know, but my version is stupid. So, oh my God, I love that though.
So they were letting her stay there, though, because she was under protection from them. Like, obviously, you know, you have as much protection as the president at that point.
Right.
But it's because her life was being threatened by people, you know, who thought that she was doing witchcraft. Yeah. Yeah. So he went there. This would have been like the late 70s. So maybe 76 from what I found. 76 through maybe 78. But he stayed with her for a few months, Jacobo did. And that's where, when he first came in, he thought he was just going to learn more about meditation and meditation practices, because that's what he was trying to really learn more about. But when he met her, and she actually came out, you know, in this palace or whatever, I don't know, it was like a really grand house in the middle of the fucking forest. And he said that it sounded like the birds were chirping around her, like they were like saying hi to her. Like, it's just crazy. Like,
oh yeah, man. Yeah, cool. It's like, cool. They probably were too. They were like, you know,
yes.
Hello, priestess.
Some Snow White shit. It's cool.
Yeah.
So Greenberg would go off to write about Pachita very thoroughly. And so he was the one that talked about some of the other surgeries that they did together. He actually went on to assist with a bunch of the surgeries. So that whole thing that I was telling you about saturating, how they closed the wound or whatever,
Yes.
or they closed the incision. He did that. Like she showed him, like when he would assist with the surgeries, she would tell him, okay, now's the time to saturate. And he would do the thing and put his hands over it, and he would watch the incisions close.
So he was able to do the saturation as well. So she could teach how to do this.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I hope she taught other people secretly, man. This would have.
Yeah. Well, she did. Her son would end up continuing on her work.
Good. Yay.
Mm-hmm. But then he died in like 2012. And then after that, I think it was his daughter who's continued. So supposedly there's still someone out there that carries it on, but I don't think it's to the extent that she was able to do. You know what I mean? I think some things somehow got lost along the way. So with Grinberg, he wrote down one of these stories of this little girl who came in, and she'd had a normal surgery, you know, in a hospital. And what happened was that the surgery went wrong, and it basically left her a fucking vegetable, just completely unable to care for herself. Could not talk, had no facial movement, nothing, just almost lifeless. So they brought her in, and she actually had 3 separate surgeries done by Pachita. And she was the one where she went in and she did brain surgery. She actually replaced a piece of her cerebral cortex.
Oh,
yeah. By the 3rd surgery, the girl was able to smile. So it wasn't going to be like, you know, completely 100% like back to normal, but it was going to have some amount of progress. But also the fact that she fucking did a brain transplant on her and she didn't die. Like
no anesthesia.
No anesthesia.
Or antiseptic. I still can't get over that part.
Yeah. And they did talk about, he wrote a lot about how some people encountered a lot of pain. Like some people screamed and some people giggled.
Oh,
some people laughed like it tickled. Some people felt absolutely no pain, just nothing. And there was just like a scale, just different people just kind of felt different things. It was almost, he said that it was almost like the amount of faith that they had in the process displayed the amount of pain that they were going to be in.
That makes sense. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That makes a lot of sense.
So without getting like too deep scientific theory, because Grinberg would go on to create what is called it was called theory of synergy. Synergy theory. And he actually used Pachita's work to explain it. One of the things that he would say is that she was working that he theorized that the brain creates and emanates what he called a neuronal field, kind of like a matrix thing, right? If you imagine it like a personal Wi-Fi signal that interacts with a broader and larger source field. And he called that source field a pre-space structure. And so this source field, or the pre-space structure, is a field that at all times holds the space, energy, matter, consciousness, and biological life. It all comes from that.
The
and so
records.
In his...
The Akasha.
Yeah.
The Akashic, yeah.
But it's... Yes, yeah, the Akash, right? Like that's everything. It holds everything. He explained it as that's where she was actually able to work out of that field, like create things from that field and bring them into like our understanding, like our world.
Right.
Yeah. So he came to these conclusions after the interaction with her. I will talk more about Jacobo later, just because his stuff is, it gets out there, and his story on its own is very, very interesting.
Yeah. Cool.
So he explained the process as this. The pre-space structure is a holographic, non-local lattice, and that has the attribute of consciousness. And then the neuronal field, which is actually created by the brain, distorts this lattice And then the reason why, like you and I can see the world is generally the same. Like we see the tree right there and we see a house right there. And when it all kind of looks the same and maybe it's all this, we can agree that it all looks the same color, is because our brains are pretty fucking similar. Like, and especially as humans, we all kind of generally have the same brain structure. So because the brain creates the neuronal field and we all have brains that are pretty much the same, we all perceive this field in generally the same way.
Okay.
Because that's created by the brain and that distorts what the lattice actually looks like. So this activates a partial interpretation of it that is perceived as an image. And so only when the brain and the mind system is free from these interpretations do the neuronal field and the pre-space structure become identical. And in this situation, the perception of reality is unitary, without ego and with the lack of any duality. So in this situation, pure consciousness and a feeling of an all-embracing unity and luminosity is perceived. All systems that spiritual leaders have developed have had the goal of arriving at this direct perception of pure pre-space structure. And the science of consciousness that I would like to develop is a science that I will try to understand, study, and research the above mentioned ideas.
Okay, dude, first off, that shit is creating tingles. Okay, that is deep, but oh my God, that is fucking awesome. That is basically, you reach a point where you're like, I have faith. I have faith. I have faith because it's happened 1,000 times. And you also get exhausted. I'm tired of not having faith. I'm tired of doubting. I'm tired of worrying and stuff. And that's when your consciousness, when you're able to do instant manifestation. That's what I'm getting from that.
Yes. Okay. So just to close it all off. So although considered to many throughout Mexico as a folk saint, Pachita is not without her detractors even to this day. So there's still going to be people who, don't
complain
believe
about or whatever,
say that it was a hoax. Yeah. So there are some people who see her as being just misguided, but with good intentions, being an outright fraudster and hoaxer, because the pictures at this point are old, right? And they're like in black and white, and you can't actually see like whatever open guts, or I don't know what you expect to see, but there aren't that type of picture out there. And then there's one paranormal researcher, Johanna Michelson, who even claimed that Pachita was harnessing unseen demonic forces in her healings.
Here we go.
It's like, there's always one bit. There's always one bitch.
It's always got to be that bitch. And of course, her name's got to be Johanna. Because I am that bitch sometimes. I'm just saying. Okay, anyway.
And the treatment that Pachita was most known for, psychic surgery, has been branded as medical fraud by most legitimate and medical authorities worldwide. Of course, because
it's going to be branded by medical fraud because, that would completely destroy the healthcare system and make healthcare maybe free, definitely affordable.
Right. But the miraculous cures experienced by Pachita's many thousands of patients may simply be chalked up to the placebo effect, according to skeptics. And others, although wary of her genuine healing talents, recognize Pachita's ability to harness the mind-body connection in healing through her use of talk therapy and basic psychoanalysis during her consultations. Right. Whether a fake or a gifted healer, Pachita continues to inspire wonder and controversy to this day.
Pachita. I love her name too. Pachita. Oh my God, that was such a good episode, topic, whatever. I was like, the whole time I was like, wait, what? It's still,
it is. It's one of those. It's like, what the fuck? and how I've never heard of this,
right? And then all of the craziness of it. Like, yeah, that's cool. That makes for a good ass topic. Good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How did you find out about this one? What drew your interest to this topic?
It was a TikTok.
Awesome. Oh my God, that was good. Thank you a lot for that.
Welcome. You have something for our closing vibe today?
Yeah, I have something for the closing vibe. So I want to talk about guidance for the week. I pulled a card for our listeners, our community, and I pulled the Knight of Wands. So that is sort of the message for the week. That the universe wants us to think about, what have we been dreaming of? What are our dreams? What are the things that are sort of going through our minds? And then it's a reminder to pursue it bravely, because the Knight of Wands goes after what the Knight wants. Passion projects, love, new career direction, a trip. It's time to shift your reality to match your desires and then make your passions work for you. And it's interesting when I pulled that card, because yesterday I did readings at Psychic Sister, and the readings tend to attract the same type of inquiry or same type of person. And yesterday they were all people who were looking for career direction, or people that are like, I know that I need to shift. I know that a big shift is coming up. I just don't know where. I just don't know what I want. And so the last couple of days have spent being in counsel with people to say, you know, it's time in the world to make your passions work for you.
Okay.
And you know, I can attest that it's literally the best thing that you can do in your entire life, right? Closing my business, moving to Portland, being here, and then doing all the things I love: podcasting, making jewelry, doing readings, retreats, all of those things. I do everything I love to make my living. And I mean, I can't imagine. I can't imagine going back. Well, remember, I did go back actually,
and you're like, I don't like it.
I don't like this. All right, so that sort of ties in with what I wanted to talk about as far as the intuitively designed jewelry that I'm doing for people. Okay, so here's the thing. The last piece that I just made, it was a citrine pendant for a Reiki practitioner who is a Scorpio, and she has a numerology expression 11-2. So she's a master number, the inspired healer. And then her life path, her purpose is the 3, and the 3 is the communicator, but the 3 is really, I call the 3 more of the self-expressionist, how we have to learn how to express ourselves authentically. Okay. So that's how this ties into the Knight of Wands, because the Knight of Wands is like, express yourself authentically and then go after it, and then let that create, you know, your joy, or create your income. So if that's something that you're struggling with right now, or you're looking for that direction or energy, pick up a piece of citrine, because citrine is a wonderful stone. It radiates sort of this power of sunshine, okay? And it activates your solar plexus, or works with your solar plexus. So as a healer, as the 11-2 healer, it's going to work with her, working on her clients, but also her personal energy field to support like empathy, compassion, partnership, balance, harmony, all of that, right? But that's for her as a healer. But for somebody who's looking to go after their passion, it's a fantastic stone, because it's a stone of manifestation, right? It supports your solar plexus, which is your empowerment center, and that's all about power and intention. So it impacts manifestation. It impacts your imagination, or your ability to visualize, really like see your dreams, and your personal will. It's just this really warm, energizing crystal, and that it also awakens your inspiration, your creativity. And then it, like I said, once all those are sort of awakened, then that powers the manifestation process, which can help you bring your dreams, your passions into tangible form. And then the last thing that citrine empowers or encourages are fresh beginnings and new pursuits. I will tell you guys, I have been sleeping on citrine because I'm not a huge fan of the color yellow. I think it's really pretty and it has its purpose, but like I'm not. If I see something, yellow is probably one of the last colors that I'll pick.
And a lot of times it's just heat treated amethyst, isn't it? Like it's not even real citrine.
It's not real citrine, right? Which doesn't make a difference in the qualities that much, but real citrine, natural citrine, what I bought is, oh my God, it's just, it's stunning. So, But what I realized was with this design is that, oh my God, citrine pops against silver.
It's so pretty.
It was so pretty. So I'm not going to sleep on citrine anymore. I'm going to start incorporating citrine into more of my jewelry. Rings aren't selling right now. I don't know why people aren't buying rings, but boy, they love those pendants. So probably because they're easier to wear a pendant. You can switch a pendant out with your outfit with a ring. You know, you only have so many fingers, and most people have a wedding ring, whatever. So,
yeah, that's exactly why I don't have that many rings.
Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about in the closing vibe is, the power of citrine and going after your dreams.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, guys, just a reminder, you can find us on Instagram under Esoterics Podcast. You can find me individually at Fioraliz, that's FIORALIZ _. And you can find Joe at Joe Figueras, that's JOFIGUERAS _ Akashic _ reader, and Joe Figueras _ studio.
Yeah. If you just pop in Joe Figueras, they'll both come up.
Yep.
You know,
and you can find us on all the socials under Esoterics Podcast, and be sure to join our Facebook community. If you do ever have any questions, topic suggestions, that's a good place to drop it. You can just join also just to hear firsthand about our services, events, courses, and as well as access woo-friendly resources, energy updates, and group-only pricing, occasional card pulls, and a whole lot more.
Mm-hmm. Dumb memes are our favorites. Woo-woo memes. That's a good place to get all the woo-woo memes. You'll also find support and information there for developing your own spiritual and intuitive abilities, as well as how to develop a daily practice, which is really, really important. Daily practices including tarot, oracle, meditation, that sort of thing. So we are so grateful. Thank you for inviting us into your life. Stay mystical, magical, and ready to do it again next episode.